Manny Martinez, and I am the Community Schools Director here at the Community Charter School of Paterson, and I am also a board member on the Paterson Public School Board. And I'm here with my colleague Jessica Pichardo, who is going to be asking us some questions. So, Jessica, please.
What is the relationship between accountability and assessment in the academy today?
The relationship between accountability and assessment. First, let me start by defining accountability. I think accountability is a way that we ensure that we are hitting our marks and staying the course, working towards our end desired goal. Assessment, in my opinion, is the guide that we use to ensure that we're staying on that track. So the relationship ideally should be a symbiotic one. And kind of working backwards, you want to look at your assessment to kind of determine where your desired end goal is going to be. And then the accountability are the measures that you're using along the way to make sure that you're staying the course and that you're hitting your benchmarks as you get there. So, you want to take your baby steps along the way, and you're making sure that you're hitting those marks. That's your accountability, and the assessment is what's keeping you focused on the end desired result.
So, how do you think this relationship helps or hinders the learning process?
Well, I think it's again, it should be a symbiotic relationship, so it should be very helpful. It's the notion of the right hand knowing what the left hand is doing at all times. So I think it's in order for this to be effective, they have to be working in unison. I think the only time that it can potentially run the risk of being a hindrance is if the data that you're using to guide you along the way is inaccurate. If you're using inaccurate data, as a guide along the way, it's going to take you the wrong direction because again, the data is something that we use here and in our district that guides our practices. The tendency to kind of use a visceral approach to something. At times that approach can be useful, but really you want to use your data to drive your decisions and the things that you're doing. So at times, if your data is inaccurate, it can certainly become a hindrance in what you're doing because it's going to misguide you. It's going to lead you astray.
Okay, thank you. And what strategies or measures must educators utilize to strike a balance between accountability and assessment?
I think fluidity and an ability to adapt are important to make sure that you strike a balance. The notion of avoiding extremes, I think, is important as well. You want to be able to, kind of stay in the middle course. So as long as you're able to do that, I think you can maintain that balance between the two. Again, you don't ever want to be too, geared toward one way. I think you run the risk of, it'd be the equivalent of, if you're in a classroom setting, and I'm paying attention to a certain group of students in front of me, what I'm essentially doing is while they're getting attention, I'm neglecting the students who I'm not looking at. So in that case, that's in my opinion an example of something that that you don't want to do. You want to be able to, work with that group of students, but also be cognizant of what else is taking place in the classroom and be fluid and adaptable. Because if I'm working with a cohort of students here and I see something that's working very well rather, then I can, good, make sure they're on task and I can move to the other as opposed to being rigidly, engaged in what's going on with one cohort of students. The ability to be very adaptable and the ability to be fluid in the way you're executing your tasks. I think those are good things to keep in mind in order to maintain and strike that balance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Martinez. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Pichardo.